A while ago when I was preparing to do a solo void, I definitely did not feel ready. So I sat on an 8-8 night with all the stuff I wanted to bring for a solo void for months. Evidently, I eventually got around to doing it, but I definitely was not ready when I did. Now that sounds incredibly backwards. Like, I wasn't ready but I still did it in the end. Wouldn't I have to be ready to do it in the first place? Well, that would be a pretty natural thought to have, and it's probably one that you have. But unfortunately, that's not what happened, and I don't think I would have ever been ready, and I don't think I need to be. During my first attempt at the solo void, I had noticed that my electric pet would be paralyzing minions behind me, and eventually that led to me not being able to control the train of minions as effectively as I would like to. So I spent a little bit just building another pet that didn't have electric. This took a little bit, but I also never knew when I wanted to stop building the pet. I never knew what point I would be ready. The wantingness to be ready led to me never being ready. Being ready would have never existed for me in this case. There would have always been something else that I could have done that would have made me more ready. But that day would never come. Ironically, the wanting of the non-electric pet to make me feel ready was paralyzing. There's a legendary tuba player named Arnold Jacobs, and they taught that the mind has the capability for a certain amount of information. If the mind is flooded with too many thoughts, it will overload. Concentration is lost, caused by overanalyzing. Jacobs calls this paralysis by analysis. When you're doing tasks that you're unfamiliar with, it is incredibly easy to get overloaded with information and briefly shut down, as if someone unfamiliar with O3 commonly will sit and watch their character die because of being overloaded by shots and becoming anxious over it. One of the ways that people can overcome this is by recording their point of view to watch over and study later. This is important because you need your mind to be fully engaged with the task at hand. You can use the recording to learn at a different, hopefully less stressful time. In Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's book Flow, he says, "In everyday life, we sometimes feel that the challenges are too high in relation to our skills, and then we feel frustrated and anxious. When people are anxious, overloading yourself is a very easy thing to do. Your brain can only focus on so many things, so when you're doing dungeons that you're not familiar with and the challenge is difficult, you shouldn't limit your brain by trying to learn while doing the dungeon at the same time. Just do your best, and if you fail, then you fail. Spending the mental energy afterwards to learn and not be frustrated with your failure is the best thing to do. If you're able to watch back your gameplay in any way, whether it be hardware or software recording, or even your phone propped up against something to record your screen, you'll be able to find your obvious mistakes through hindsight. There's a fantastic quote in a book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, and it reads, "The mistake appears obvious, but it is just hindsight. You could not have known in advance." So while your brain is busy doing a dungeon, save a recording of it so you can look back at it, learning through hindsight. So long as you are aware of your mistakes and how to do better in the next scenario, you will always keep improving. Though sometimes you don't need to do anything better, sometimes you just need to do things differently. Let's say you're doing an O3 and you're pretty good at just surviving but not really comfortable going in for damage. Sure, you may be surviving and you may be doing alright, but there might be a side of you that really just wants to go in for damage and progress the fight a little faster, and maybe even be a little bit more consistent. Sometimes you may need to let go of the strategy that works in order to improve on a different strategy. Like sometimes you need to abandon a bit of safety to get into a position that is better for doing damage, but it might be a little bit more dangerous. Risk your character to learn for the future. It's frustrating. But is the frustration coming from learning or from dying? I have a viewpoint that is often unshared, but typically when I die, I think so long as I've learned something from death, it is worth it. When seeing death like that, it can usually be far less frustrating when dealing with the loss, and you can also learn something from it too. And sure, frustration still happens, but let it out. Let the frustration come out, then you can have a better mind while looking back. Side note, this is also why getting frustrated over things that aren't your fault, like the game shitting itself, is hard to justify, like, to not be frustrated about, because it's not you that's the cause of the problem. And it sucks. But DECA doesn't revive for things like that, so it's not like you can do anything about it. It's like a suck it up moment, but we can't learn anything from it. Have you ever tried to do something? It's strange, isn't it? When we try to do things, we leave room for failure as if it's supposed to happen. Earlier I said that you should just do your best, and if you fail, then you fail, and I stand by that. When you aim to do your best and you fail, then you can improve on your best to make it better. Don't waste energy on trying to refine the self that is expecting to fail. You refine your best self to be better. There's a mental barrier that stops people from failing too. Some people excel in certain areas but can also suck in other areas. And the problem is that those people don't want to adventure into the areas that they suck in. Expertise is not a single skill, but a collection of skills. Of course, when you're learning how to do things, you're going to fail, at least a little bit. If you try your best to avoid the failure that will happen, you're actively trying to prevent yourself from learning what happens. Something that I have done a lot is trapping spooky on walls. I had 3 things that helped me learn how to do this incredibly well. Lots of failure, recordings, and most importantly, someone who just taught me. Now, I've talked about failure and recordings a lot already, but the last one is so important that I don't think I would have been at the skill that I'm at now if it weren't for this amazing person. And it's amazing that I have not even mentioned them on this channel yet. One of the skills they taught me was how to hook spooky. Knowing how to do it is half the battle. Knowing how to do it did not mean that I was going to do it perfectly the following time. The guide I made for spooky is fueled by failure, and by failure I mean, of course, I mean a lot of it. Information may exist externally, like in the forms of guides, teachers, or notes or something, but knowledge can only exist internally, and failure is a healthy way to get that knowledge inside of you. Let's say you're in this scenario. I bet you can think of a million things that you shouldn't do, but I bet that those million things are only known because you failed a bunch of times. Learning what to do is literally just doing the opposite of what you shouldn't do. There's probably no better example for this in Realm than halls rushing. If you don't know what to do while you're halls rushing, you'll likely fail. Like when I enter a golem room, I almost exclusively look for these shots. Mainly because when learning how to rush halls, I die to this simple shot a lot. A ton of failure has led to me in situations like this. Which is impressive, but I was never going to die here. So what's my point? Why am I just throwing examples at you now? Well, going back to the point I made earlier, where I made the point of learning spooky decoying took 3 main points. I'm saying that you should go out and fail and learn from it. Fail big. And what could make it easier is to get someone who knows what is going on to teach you too. Their failures and experiences can help you too. At the start of the video, I was talking about the solo void that I had done a while ago. There are examples that I have that are prime examples of things that I learned through failures. Like one of the attempts that I did, I got paralyzed and then wrecked by minions. And the next attempt, I brought holy water with me. But the problem was that I didn't have it readily accessible, and I failed to use them. Then the attempt that was successful, I had them in my quick slot 2 instead, leading to me being able to use them and get out of a sticky situation. Telling people to fail really sucks too. Of course, someone who likes to teach things, seeing people get frustrated with failure really sucks. Teaching people how to learn from it, on the other hand, is difficult, but I find it often yields a far better result. So with that being said, I have an idea that I haven't done anything with, but I think it would be neat. I made a poll a while ago that asked if I should make VOD reviews, but for other people. Some people have DM'd me asking to take a look at their gameplay and suggest things that they could improve on, and I often just make an unlisted video and just send it to them. It seems to be a really good resource for them, but one time I saw Afro had posted a video of him learning how to rush Lost Halls, and in the video he had asked if anyone had feedbacks, like comments or anything. So I made a full VOD review for him and just uploaded it and just sent him a link. And that got me thinking if I should do it for other people too, because I realized that these videos can benefit a ton of people too. And from the poll, I had learned that a majority of people would like to see them, but they don't have VODs readily available though. Some of you do, which is also neat. But I haven't mentioned this in a video yet. I wanted to do that before I did anything else. So if you would like to input on this, I have a few things I want to know. Firstly, do you want to see this? And I know this is like a bad question because there's a lot of people who, you know, may not care and won't say anything. But if you have any sort of input, if like you want to see this or you don't want to see it, I would like to know, and maybe why. The second thing is, how should I get these VODs? For like, most likely I'm having people uploading it to YouTube, and then just we'll go from there. But like, is it easier to get it in a Discord server or something? Because I know that's pretty easy for a lot of people. Like, I don't know the best way, but I would like to know a way, just from people. And if I do, and thirdly, if I do this, should I have the other person in VC with me in case there are like live questions, or should I just sit in a VC alone and just do the VOD? Either one is pretty good, but one allows for questions and the other one just is no questions, but it's like unfiltered what's going on in my head. But those are the three things that I would like to know. Of course, if there's any additional comments or concerns, I would also like to hear those too. It's not a perfect thing, so it would be nice to know. Lastly, the person who taught me how to hook Spooky is no trust.